My name is Sabrina Hale, and I'm 34. Competence, in my world, isn't glamorous. It's choreography. The dishwasher slips into off-peak at 12:01 a.m. because I taught it patience. The last cell in my budget glows green like a steady heartbeat. My townhouse, my lease, my rules, breathes with the kind of calm you don't toast until the boat lurches. Tonight, it lurched. I restore strange instruments for a living. Lutes, viols, the occasional pre-war archtop. It's quiet, meticulous work. Varnish you can smell before you see. Glue joints that fail if you rush by a single breath. You develop a steadiness in your hands, and, if you're unlucky, in your life. That steadiness is how I put up with Evan Mercer for as long as I did. We weren't married. We were 4 years into a relationship that looked good in photos. He moved into my townhouse 18 months ago. My name is on the lease. The ground floor workshop is my sanctuary. Evan called it the violin basement, with a laugh that always felt a half step off key. The car, because there's always a car in these stories, was a brand new Mercedes C-Class coupe, a congratulations on the new business quarter gift from his father, Alden Mercer, who collects real estate holdings the way other people collect kitchen magnets. Alden is generous where it shines and cheap where it doesn't. When he found out my auto policy, thanks to my spotless record, was almost 60% cheaper than anything he could get for Evan, he phoned me himself. "Sabrina," he said, warm as a closed fist, "let's put Evan on your policy. Purely a formality. I'll have my girl send you the premium." Like an idiot, I agreed. The check was always late when it came at all. And because my finances were now zip-tied to Evan's driving habits, I insisted on one thing, a high-end dashcam with cloud backup. Evan hated it. "It's ugly, Brie. It ruins the aesthetic. It's like you don't trust me." "I don't trust other drivers," I said. Non-negotiable. He pouted. The camera stayed. At 3:14 a.m., my phone vibrated on the nightstand. I surfaced, slow and gummy, and saw his name. "Evan, I messed up. Come get me." Before my brain could thread the words together, a second message landed. Longer, frantic, each period a small bullet. "Evan, I wrecked the Benz. I was drunk. Hit a parked car or something. Nobody saw. I'm on road name about a mile from the house. Come pick me up and tell the cops you were driving. Say I was upset and you were calming me down and you hit it." I read it 3 times. "Tell the cops you were driving." He wasn't scared. He wasn't asking for help. He was ordering me to absorb a DUI, a hit and run, and a felony. Trade my clean record, my workshop, my life for the convenience of his. All the small entitlements, wallet forgotten, dinner bills covered tomorrow. The way Alden's shadow would lengthen across our living room whenever Evan made a mess, converged into this one sociopathic instruction. My hands shook, not with fear, but with clarity. I looked around the bedroom at Evan's designer clothes shed on the chair, then downstairs, in my mind, at the 1920s Italian cello I was restoring. A commission worth over $50,000 on completion. My life's work, cradle nested under a linen shroud. I took a breath. Precision settled over me like a practiced posture. My first action, I replied, "On my way." My second, I opened the dashcam app. The alert glowed red, impact detected 0314, and the cloud footage began to stream. Evan leaving the bar after Guy's night, slurred singing, the wheel shimmy, the sudden, sickening scrape as he peeled the mirror off a brand new Escalade and caved in its door. The car rocked. He stumbled out, peered at the Mercedes, glanced at the Escalade, looked up and down the street, then climbed back in and drove away. A clear, cold hit and run, and drunk. I downloaded the file directly to my phone. My third action, I opened a new message to Alden. I pin-dropped Evan's location. Me. "Alden, Evan has been in an at-fault accident at intersection. He texted me asking me to claim I was driving. I have dashcam footage showing he was alone and intoxicated. I will not commit a felony. He needs your help. Here is the video." I attached the file and hit send. My fourth action, I called my insurance company's 24-hour hotline. When the agent answered, my voice was level in that way people mistake for calm. "I need to report an incident. A listed driver on my policy, Evan Mercer, has been involved in an at-fault hit and run in a 2025 Mercedes C-Class, plate number redacted. I'm not at the scene. I have definitive dashcam footage showing he was the sole occupant and intoxicated. I'm emailing the file to my claims agent now. My fifth action, I called my lawyer, Nate Carver, who handled my lease and the occasional contract. It was 3:30 a.m. I left him a detailed voicemail. Nate, it's Sabrina. I'm in trouble. Evan crashed his father's car and asked me to take the fall. I've sent the footage to my insurer and to Alden. I expect serious blowback from Alden's side. Please call me as soon as you get this. I did not go pick Evan up. I sat in the dark. My phone buzzed with his texts. Evan, where are you? It's cold. Evan, get here now. Evan, my dad is screaming. What did you do? Evan, answer your phone. Then, silence. Daddy must have collected him. At 4:02 a.m., an unknown number called. I let it die. It rang again immediately. I answered. Sabrina, the voice said, smooth, cool, and very expensive. This is Martin Sloan. I represent the Mercer family. We need to discuss your cooperation. Not Evan, not Alden, I said. The family, he repeated, as if that word should kneel me. I stared at the dark window. The streetlight etched bare branches into the glass. I've already shared the dashcam video with my insurer, I said, and with Alden. That was hasty, Sloan said. The silk thinned. You are the primary on that policy, Ms. Hale. You're liable. This could get very expensive for you. It would be best for everyone if that footage were retracted. You can tell the insurance company you misidentified the driver. Alden is very generous to people who are loyal. There it was, the velvet glove, the loaded ring. Loyalty, I said. He asked me to go to prison for him. Your boyfriend was distraught. People say foolish things when they're frightened. He wasn't frightened. He was giving orders. A beat. The expensive voice cooled. Ms. Hale, Alden wishes to resolve this quietly. If you retract, we will ensure you are made whole. My lawyer will be in touch, I said, and hung up. The room kept its breath. Somewhere downstairs, the workshop's dehumidifier kicked on with a small, dutiful hum. I thought of hide glue setting at just the right temperature, of seams that fail if you rush them, of hands that must not shake. I locked the front door's deadbolt and slid the chain. For the first time that night, I noticed my heart was steady. 2 weeks later, the adrenaline had burned off, leaving a chalky residue of resolve that didn't taste like victory. I lived in the quiet between official emails and the next certified envelope. Sleep broke in thin pains. The dehumidifier downstairs kept time like a second heart. Insurance moved first. A woman with the voice of a tired metronome read from a script that still managed to sound personally disappointed in me. Given the material change in risk, Ms. Hale, we'll be terminating your policy in 30 days. She praised my proactive documentation while informing me my premiums elsewhere would probably be astronomical. Then she mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that the owner of the Escalade had already filed a large claim. Their counsel would pursue all appropriate avenues. Appropriate avenues. It sounded like a pleasant walk that ended at a cliff. Alden didn't call. He didn't text. The silence felt strategic. When power goes quiet, it is condensing somewhere. Evan, on the other hand, did not condense. He arrived. I heard the front door before I saw him. His key still fit because I hadn't changed the locks yet, an oversight that felt like a small betrayal by my past self. He slammed it hard enough to rattle the framed soundpost diagrams in the hallway. Sabrina, he shouted, and then softer, rehearsed, Bree. I stepped up from the workshop, wiping fine dust from my palms. The living room light carved him into an expensive statue. Perfect hair, new jacket that didn't look like grief or remorse had ever touched it. He'd always been handsome, the way a storefront mannequin is handsome, designed to keep you from thinking about the price tag. You betrayed me, he said, low and ragged, like he was the wounded one. You called my father. You sent that video. The police came to the house. You texted me to commit a felony for you, I said. Then you committed a hit and run. I told the truth. It wouldn't have been prison, he snapped, as if that were the point. My dad... He caught himself, smoothed the word with a different tone. Alden would have fixed it. You just had to be supportive for once. Show up. Be a partner. I thought of the word partner, how easy it is to pronounce and how hard it is to live inside of without someone trying to hollow it out and wear it like a mask. Your things are in boxes, I said, nodding toward the hallway. I'd spent the morning folding his shirts with the same care I gave a spruce top plate. You need to leave. His face cycled from outrage to calculation. We're practically engaged, he said. We were not. The closest we'd come was a catalog he'd left open on a jeweler's website when he wanted me to notice. I live here. Your name isn't on the lease, I said. You're a guest. You're no longer welcome. He smiled then, slow and mean, the way people smile when they have a last card they think you've forgotten. Fine, he said. I'll go, but I'm taking my engagement gift. He didn't walk toward the boxes. He walked toward the stairs to my workshop. My stomach went hollow. Evan, I said, my voice already firmer than my thoughts. Stop. What? He tried for innocence, shrugged in a way that made the shrug complicit. You gave it to me, remember? When you proposed to the cello. He laughed at his own joke. You said it would sing at our wedding. It's ours. He wasn't talking about a ring. He was talking about the 1920s Italian cello, my passion project, my future rent, my proof that care can be cashed if you do it right and long enough. You fantasized something into paperwork, I said. There's a certificate of authenticity and a bill of sale in my name, dated 3 years before I met you. You put a story on it and tried to call it law. He put his foot on the first stair like a dare. Take one more step, I said quietly, and I'm calling the police to report attempted grand theft. He looked back over his shoulder, gauging me the way a drunk gauges a curb. He must have seen something new. The calculation failed. You're a monster, he whispered. No, I said, I'm meticulous. We stood there until the silence made a sound. Then he jerked back, grabbed a box with more force than necessary, and barked into his phone for Alden's driver. Each trip to the curb was a performance of martyrdom. Exaggerated sighs, muttered slurs, the occasional slam for emphasis. Neighbors' blinds performed their own ballet. At the door, hand on the knob, he reloaded. You'll regret this, he said, voice gone flat. My father will ruin you. He left. I locked the door. Then I had to sit on the floor because my legs decided to be honest with me. The floorboards were cool. They hummed with the weight of the townhouse and the lives it had hosted before mine. People who had also made bad bargains and then undone them with shaking hands. The next morning, my lawyer called. Okay, Nate said. You can tell when a good lawyer has already been thinking about you for hours. They sound like they're entering a conversation that's been going on in their head without you. The fight is on. Mercer's team filed a countersuit. Emotional distress, defamation, and, brace yourself, breach of fiduciary duty as a domestic partner. What does that mean? I asked. It means, he said dryly, they plan to argue that as Evan's partner, you owed him a duty to protect him from the consequences of his own actions, and by sharing the footage, you caused reputational harm. The facts are not their battlefield. The procedure is. So they'll bury us in paper. Correct. Also, their PR person is already placing calls. Expect a narrative about an overbearing girlfriend who surveilled her boyfriend with a dashcam. I assume you insisted on it because you were carrying the insurance? Yes. Good. That's rational. Now the practical. I'll need a retainer. I can work with you on a payment plan, but Sabrina, his voice softened. Alden Mercer's strategy will be attrition. He'll try to make this too expensive to be right. Downstairs, the dehumidifier clicked off. The quiet felt cavernous. Send the paperwork, I said. And Nate, one more thing. My phone has been recording calls for the past 2 weeks. He paused. Intentionally? Yes. I thought of Martin Sloane's Midnight Silk, in case the family tried to solve everything with a promise and a threat. Good instinct, Nate said. Keep recording. Inform me before you inform anyone else. The days blurred into depositions and dollars. Martin Sloane's tone in conference calls was the auditory equivalent of a scuffed patent shoe. Still shiny, but you could hear where it had been dragged. Isn't it true, Ms. Hale, he asked at one point, that you required Mr. Mercer to be on your policy so you could control him? I didn't require anything, I said. Alden requested it to save money. I insisted on a dashcam to manage the risk I was assuming. So you did force conditions. I set a boundary, I said. He agreed. Your boundary created a hostile environment, Sloane said smoothly. My client was terrified of your reactions. Isn't that why he drank that night? Because he was afraid to come home? Somewhere beneath the table, my hand tightened into a fist. Nate's palm brushed the table once, a drummer's signal, steady. They weren't litigating what had happened. They were litigating who I was allowed to be. Meanwhile, the other machine began to hum. The Escalade owner's lawyer was loud in all the right places, asking why an intoxicated driver had been chauffeured away from a police interaction without consequence. The local DA, facing an election year and the easy optics of fairness, started to take calls. Quietly, Then, not so quietly, they requested the footage. When they got it, they called it compelling. The night the dam cracked, I was planning a maple back, shaving curls that fell like curled paper moons around my shoes. My phone rang with a number I didn't know. I let it go. It rang again immediately. "Sabrina," Sloan said, and this time there was no velvet. "This has gone too far. The DA is pressing charges. DUI, hit and run, reckless endangerment. This is your fault." "I didn't drive drunk," I said. "Listen to me. Alden is prepared to be generous one last time. You will go to the DA and to your insurer, and you will tell them that, upon review, the dash cam footage is unreliable. You were tired. It was dark. You may have misidentified the driver. The file could be corrupted. Plausible doubt is all we need. In exchange, the countersuit disappears, your legal bills are paid, and $100,000 lands wherever you like. And you will stop talking about that cello like it's a sacred cow, because it would be a shame if your workspace suffered a security incident." For a second, all I could hear was the high-tension whine of a string just before it snaps. "So," I said carefully, "commit perjury, obstruct justice, and surrender my credibility. So Evan can, what exactly, learn nothing?" "It's the best offer you'll get," he said. "You have 24 hours, or we proceed, and I strip you to studs." I looked at the bench, at the cello, sleeping under its linen shroud, at my hands, steady, steady, steady. "I'll think about it," I said. "You do that," he said, and hung up. The call finished recording with its neat little chime. Precision again, doing what it does. I stood alone in my workshop, the room still smelling of maple and hot hide glue, and realized something simple and terrifying. Monsters prefer darkness because it lets them claim you imagine the teeth. Light is a kind of evidence. I opened my messages to Nate. "Me, you're not going to believe this. Sloan just made me an offer I think a judge would call what it is. And yes, the recorder caught all of it. The send bubble whooshed away. Upstairs, the house exhaled. Down here, the cello slept. Between those two breaths, I felt my life tilt, not back toward safety, but toward leverage. The next 48 hours were a blur of motion and phone calls that smelled faintly of gunpowder. Nate didn't waste time with outrage. He went surgical. "Forward me the file," he said. "Do not speak to anyone from their side again." Within 2 hours, he had filed the recording with the judge overseeing the civil countersuit, attaching a motion for sanctions and a request to have Sloan's entire firm removed for gross misconduct. Another copy went to the district attorney's office, the same DA now holding Evan's case file. By morning, the quiet war had new headlines. Mercer family lawyer, accused of witness tampering and bribery. I read them with my coffee, which tasted too metallic to finish. That day, Nate told me, "You've done the hardest part. Now we wait for gravity." Gravity, it turned out, is not gentle. Alden's empire ran on reputation. Golf club handshakes, foundation galas, smiling photographs that implied decency. Sloan's recording detonated right under that marble facade. Within a week, Alden released a terse statement. "The Mercer family has terminated its relationship with Mr. Martin Sloan and his firm." It didn't save him. The state bar announced an inquiry before the ink was dry. For a brief moment, I felt almost sorry for Sloan. Almost. But pity doesn't pay retainers. Alden's new legal team was smaller, humbler, local. They met with Nate once and, by the following afternoon, quietly dropped the countersuit. Emotional distress, defamation, breach of domestic duty. Each phrase evaporated like perfume left in the sun. "Just like that?" I asked Nate. "Just like that," he said. "They bled themselves dry chasing a bad angle. Sloan made it toxic to continue. It should have felt like victory, but it didn't. It felt like aftermath. The insurance company still had their own war to fight. After settling with the Escalade owner, they filed a massive subrogation suit against Alden as the car's owner and Evan as the driver, determined to recover every cent. The beauty of documentation, Nate told me, is that it doesn't forget. When the DA formally charged Evan, DUI, hit and run, reckless endangerment, the entitlement finally cracked. He texted me once, just one line, "Evan, I can't believe you'd do this to me." I didn't reply. The next time I saw him was months later, across a courtroom. He looked smaller, like someone had turned down his brightness. His lawyer spoke about youth, panic, a momentary lapse. The DA played the dashcam footage, projected big and merciless, the swerving, the crunch, The pause where he looked both ways, then drove off. Evan didn't look at me, but I watched him. Not out of cruelty, out of something quieter. The realization that love, once it turns into obedience, becomes its own kind of intoxication. He pled guilty. Probation for 18 months, a $10,000 fine, 200 hours of community service, license suspended for a year, a required victim impact panel. For a Mercer, that was exile. When court adjourned, reporters surged, cameras blinked like locusts. I kept my head down, walked out the side door with Nate. Outside, sunlight hit the courthouse steps hard enough to make everything look overexposed. "You won," Nate said quietly. I shook my head. No, I survived. Weeks passed. The practical cleanup began. Insurance reimbursements, legal settlements, letters stamped. Final notice replaced by resolved. I sold the engagement ring Evan never actually paid for. The proceeds covered Nate's last invoice. One evening, after the papers were filed and the headlines had cooled, Nate stopped by the workshop with a bottle of bourbon. He looked at the cello on my bench, gleaming softly beneath the work light. "So this is the famous instrument," he said. I nodded. It was the only thing they couldn't touch. He smiled. "Evidence, craftsmanship, and patience. You're the patron saint of all three." I laughed, and it startled me because I hadn't heard the sound in months. Later that night, alone, I opened the workshop windows. November air swept in, crisp enough to taste. The street outside was quiet, the kind of quiet you earn. The cello stood complete, strings tuned, varnish dry. I drew the bow once. The note bloomed low and human, filling every inch of the room. Upstairs, my phone buzzed with a notification. News alert. Martin Sloan disbarred. I smiled faintly. Not revenge, just gravity. People always imagine justice feels like fireworks. It doesn't. It feels like silence finally staying where you left it. I'm still paying off debt, still rebuilding my client list, still waking sometimes at 3:14 a.m., when the ghost of that text hums against my ribs. But when I pick up my tools, the tremor that used to live in my hands is gone. They're steady again. Some nights I think about Evan, standing in an orange vest on a highway median, picking up litter for community service while his father pretends not to recognize him. That thought doesn't make me gloat. It just reminds me of balance, of physics, of music, of life. Consequences, not revenge. Gravity.